Governments often intervene in markets by setting price ceilings, but in some markets they tend to intervene by setting price floors. And the labor market is such an example. So let's think for a moment about a labor market. So in the labor market, it is we the people who supply our time, so we represent the supply side, and it is firms that are interested in hiring us, so the firms represent the demand side. Like any other market, we have price and quantity, but we have slightly different notation. We use wage rate to represent the price of our time, and instead of counting us in terms of unit, we count people in terms of L, or labor, maybe in terms of hours worked in a week, or the number of people looking for a job. So we'll use L for the quantity of labor, and W for the wage, the price of labor. And in an equilibrium, quantity supplied is equal to quantity demanded. We have an equilibrium level of employment at an equilibrium wage rate. So in this case, $6 an hour. Suppose the government feels that $6 an hour is not high enough because it's very hard for people to live off $6 an hour. Here in America, $6 an hour, even if you worked 50 hours a week, it would be very hard for you to pay your rent and your bills and have enough food and be able to pay for things that your children need. So it would not be, here in America, a living wage. So the government intervenes and sets a price floor. We call that a minimum wage. So a price floor is a price that cannot drop below a certain level. So suppose, for example, that the government sets a price floor of $10 an hour. What would happen at this price floor? Well, we can see that we will have a situation where quantity supplied exceeds quantity demanded. We can read off the supply curve how many people want to go ahead and find a job. This is the quantity of labor that's supplied. But at this higher wages, firms only want to hire fewer people. So we can read off the demand curve what is the quantity of labor demanded. And lo and behold, we have excess supply. Some textbooks and some teachers call this a surplus. I prefer to call this excess supply. In the market for labor, you could think of this as involuntary unemployment. People are looking for a job because they've heard the wage is $10 an hour and they want to work at $10 an hour, but those jobs are not available. In terms of total surplus, again, remember that the amount that's exchanged in the market is always the minimum of the quantity supplied and the quantity demanded, and the minimum of the two is right here. And lo and behold, we have a situation where we've cut off a little bit of the pie. Once again, we have some surplus that is not generated. Here are people that firms want to hire, and indeed these people would like to work, but the firm is not able to hire them because the wage is left artificially high. So this again is a situation where some of the surplus is cut off and thrown away. Once again, we have deadweight loss, and once again, we are not maximizing total surplus. I like to give this example for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'd like to remind ourselves that intervening in a market is always problematic. That even when the government has really the best of people in its mind and really wants to benefit the market and benefit the people who live in a country, intervening in a market is going to be detrimental. And in particular, with a binding price floor, it's quite likely that some people will not be employed, will be laid off, and it's quite likely that we'll have some deadweight loss. The other reason that I want to go over this market is because I think it's really important to understand that we care about two things. We care about efficiency and we care about equity, and sometimes these two goals are in conflict with each other. From an equity perspective, we might really want people to have a living minimum wage. We have to realize that in certain conditions and when the markets are perfect and functioning properly, if we intervene in the market, we'll be moving down the hill, we'll be cutting some of the pie, we'll be shrinking the amount of surplus that's available. And we have to be aware of this trade-off between efficiency and equity.